Welcome back to a new video, and on this occasion is the Augmented series. This guide is organized into chapters. You can easily navigate to a very specific section by using the description or the timeline of this video. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe, and this channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. So if you didn't notice, all the Augmented series instruments, they have the same interface. What changes is the sound that it makes and of course the samples that it uses to create those sounds. And also the presets. All the Augmented series are pretty heavily preset based. So if you learn how to use one, you will learn them all. Right, so let me give you a small introduction. The Augmented series is fantastic. It's a very good instrument. This has essentially 4 different engines, 2 samplers, and you have 2 different synth engines, and they are divided on 2 different layers. Once you play something, you have the morph. And depending on the configuration of the preset, and you can set this manually, you can just morph the layer A, into the B, or just blend both. Completely depends on the preset and your configuration. Right now we are on the play screen, which is the easy screen. Then you have the layers screen, and this one is the more advanced screen. We will spend most of the time right here. The play screen is just to change some of the presets, for example, of each of the engines. You can just drag and drop the engines and just change the different engines very easily. Just drag and drop, and this will of course change how the morph works, how everything works actually. You can also mute the different engines. You can also solo the engines. And you can just, when you play something, just go here and change the preset on each of the engines or parts. They are called parts too. Also, if you want to go random, you have a dice right here. If you click it, you will be choosing from a random preset and just get a random type of sound. Also here, when you go to each of the parts or engines, you can select one of the different modes that you get for the synth or the different modes that you get for the sampler. You can also change the volume for the different parts, and then at the bottom you have the macros. Most of the presets will do whatever it says right here. The color will change something about the color of the patch, the time, which is the envelopes and everything else. Then if you have some modulation like LFO, and then you have the different effects. Still, all this is just assignable. We can go into the configuration of the layers and change how this works. Not everything is customizable, but almost everything is. Now, this one again is the easy panel, and I'm pretty sure that you're here to learn the layers panel. Okay, so let's talk about the layers and the engines. If you go to the presets, you can always load a template and start, from the scratch. You have 2 sides, the layer A and the layer B, and on each you can use 2 different parts or engines. You can use 2 samplers and 2 synth engines. You cannot use 4 synths or 4 samplers. Any other configuration like 2 samplers on 1 layer and 2 synths, or maybe 1 sampler and 1 synth, that's fine, but you cannot use 4 of each. Like on the play screen, you can just turn off the part, you can solo, you can change the preset, you can get a random and just, toggle the different presets. Now, when you are on the sampler engine, you can only pick samples that you get on your presets. So the whole Augmented series is a heavily preset-based type of instrument. You cannot import samples, you can only choose the ones that you get right here. I'm using right now the Augmented brass. If I go to process brass, you will get, samples that sound like that. And if I go maybe to a different one, notice that the icons will change. And the engine is pretty much the same for all of them. The only thing that changes is how the sample sounds. If I go maybe to additional samples, it's just the same. If I go there, notice that we get a different icon. But yeah, like I said before, you cannot import the different samples. You only go to your presets and then you just find something that you like. So this is the sampler. You use the samples that you get. Then on the synth engine, it's just a little bit different. If I go to the presets, notice that we get different categories. We get the analog, granular, harmonic, simpler, and then wavetable. If I go to the analog, this will give you an analog type of engine, and you can do a few things. This is not a full-blown synthesizer. This is still preset based. So if I maybe load the analog, it's going to sound like this, but sometimes if you load a different one, the oscillators will do something different in the background, or maybe the third one is going to be tuned on a fifth, or maybe one octave higher. Again, this is still heavily preset based. If I go maybe to the granular, this one will use a granular type of engine, but it's still, a synth type of engine. Then you have the harmonic. And I'm pretty sure that if you know pigments, all the engines right here are pretty familiar to you. If I go to, let me go to the simpler. This one, if we select the sample, I'm going to go there and just close it. We get a sample, just a simpler sample player. And then if I go here to the wavetable, we get, again, just a wavetable type of engine. Like I said before, on this instrument, you need to use the presets. For example, the wavetable is the most obvious. I cannot go here and just change the wavetable. I can only just toggle the different presets and just trying to find the wavetable I like, and then use the controls maybe to adjust something, but we can only use this wavetable on this preset. I'm going to go back to the default. If we think about this, I think Arturia combined the functionalities of pigments and the sampler and then just combined everything into one single device. Okay, so if we keep moving forward, both parts on each layer will go to its own filter. Notice that we have a filter for the A and a filter for the B. And then if we go at the bottom, it says layer A envelopes. So the first and second envelope will control the first part or the second part. And then if we go to the layer B, then we have one envelope for the, the 1 and the 2 of the B. And then you have this envelope, which will control the filter. Still, most of the envelopes can be used to modulate something, right? So we can just take it, maybe go to resonance and then just modulate something with that envelope. But you always need to remember that this envelope is the amp of the part 1, and this one is the 2, and this one is the filter. Even though you have 6 different envelopes, they are tied to something very specific. So if you want to run modulations, that's why you get the LFOs, the functions, the randoms, and of course the macros. So as you can see, this thing, it's wild. You can do a lot of things. You have a million options. So it's kind of I wouldn't say it's hard to understand, hard to learn. At first glance, when you enter to this device, to the plugin, you see this and, you say, okay, this is easy. But then when you go to the layers, everything's just, kind of confusing. And it's because, again, you have a lot of different options. But this is just, again, once you learn it, it's pretty simple to use. You choose your different layer, you choose the sound, you fine-tune it if you must, and then you go to the envelopes just you would on a synthesizer. If you want to run modulations, you map your modulation, and then once you're happy with the sound that you create, you go to the effects, and then you just use it. But okay, still, this is a deep dive. I need to cover pretty much everything, and I guess we need to start with the different engines. Let's talk about the sampler. And okay, so let's talk about the sampler. And the sampler is just very, very simple. I'm using a default patch using the brass, and I'm on the layer A, just using the sampler 1. Everything else is just off. Like we discussed previously, you just look for presets. When you go here, you have the different categories. You just need to go to the different ones and just select something that you like. Every time that you go to a different category, you will be getting a different icon. Go here, just maybe select a different one, and notice that, we get different icons. All the different instruments, the augmented series instruments, are just completely the same. You will always get different icons for the different categories. Now, once you choose a sample, you have a range that you can play, and you can see it right here. It's usually on Z0 and C6, but sometimes this changes. So this shows the pitches that you can play. Everything is outside of the range. It's something that you don't get and you cannot play. For example, if I play something and just keep going up, we are going to get it because it's within the range. But if I go really up, if I play something outside the range, it will not work. Now then at the bottom, you have the tuning. So if you play something, you can change it by semitones, and you can go up to 24 up or down. When we are changing by semitones, it's because we are getting the chorus. Now you have a different mode called keyboard offset. If I go here, this is what it does. It will change the or offset the keyboard range by intervals. Notice if I play something, I'm going to go up. Notice it's changing by 5, not by 1. And also the range is moving. Now what you're doing right here, you're not extending the range of the samples or the pitches that you can't play. You're just offsetting the keyboard, that's all. I will go back to the default, and I guess I'm going to choose a different sample. So then you have the fine, and on this one, it's just cents. You can go up by 1, or you can go down by 1. Depending on the augmented device that you're using, you will be getting a distance and width, or maybe just width, or maybe nothing. And all this depends on the augmented device, because remember that we are working with samples right here. And some samples were recorded with a close and a far ambience mic. So for example, on the brass, we get the distance because we have the close mic and the far mic. But if I take you to the piano, we don't get a distance. The samples were only recorded with a close mic. So the distance param is the mixed balance between the close mic and the far mic. If I go all the way down, it's just the close mic. But if I go all the way up, we get the far mic. And right here, you just choose a blend. Now then, you have the width, and this one is just, you can make it super stereo. By default, it's 100%, which is fully stereo, but I can go down and I make it mono, or I can just go all the way up and make it super wide. I'm going to use a different sample that can sustain, and you have a filter. If you go to the left, you will be low passing, just cutting the high frequencies. If you go to the other side, you will be high passing, which is cutting the low frequencies. Right. Now then, on each of the parts, you have the volume. You can go up and down just for that part, and then you can pan to the left, or you can pan to the right. Simple as that. Still, you have an option right here that says link, and then it says A2. So when you see A or B, it's talking about the layer, and then the number, it means the other layer. On this one, it's going to say A1. So with this one, what it does, I'm going to play both layers. When you link the pan, it means that right now we are playing both parts, and when I pan, it will pan the 1, and it will pan the 2. Exactly the same. If I go here and just take it to the right side, it will pan both layers. Both parts. And you get this, of course. Maybe if you want to pan the layer A to the right and then the B to the the right side, you can do it just with one single fader, let's say. So as you can see, this was not that hard. And the whole instrument is like this. It's just pretty simple parts to learn. But then again, you have a lot of different parts. Let's keep moving forward and talk about the synth engine. Okay, we know the sampler. Let's talk about the synth. And here, it's going to take a little bit more time because for each of the synths, you have different categories, different synthesizers. You get the analog and the wavetable, which are the most traditional type of synthesis. Then you have a granular and a simpler, which are sample-based engines. And then you have the harmonic engine. And like I said before, if you know pigments, all of this should be very familiar to you. I guess I need to start with the analog. And there's a gotcha right here. All the different engines, they have a default preset. And I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to analog and then navigate to the default preset. Right? So when I close this, it will sound pretty standard. And that's fine. When you go to a preset of an engine, you get all the controls, but you don't have full, complete control of the engine. Each preset will do something behind the scenes that makes the preset sound different. And this is something, again, that you cannot control. For example, if I go to the analog default, I play something, and I get something like this. And if I go to the FM and I go up, I get nothing, because we need to have a modulator. So nothing happens on the default preset with the FM. Even if I go up in the volume of the 2 and the 3, nothing happens on the FM. I get no change. But if I go to a different preset, maybe to the detuned saws, notice that we get the saws, we get the volume for all of them, and they are really detuned. So this is something that happens behind the scenes that you cannot control. It is just the way it is. And that's why the name of the preset really matters, because it will tell you what the engine or the preset will do. Okay, I will go back to the default on the analog engine, and let's go over the different controls. You have 3 different oscillators. The oscillator 1 will be always your main oscillator, and the volume of that one will be always at 100%. What you can do right here, you can change the different waveforms. Just click and drag and just change the waveforms of the oscillators, and you can go up in the volume of the 2, and you can go up in the volume of the 3. That's it. You also get a noise generator. If I go up on the noise, we get the noise. And like I said before, then you have the FM, and the FM sometimes, depending on the preset, will work or it will just not work. In the case of the default, there's nothing behind the scenes doing something to the FM, but if we go to the presets, I'm going to go to this one, the one that says Sync Stack. If I select that one and I play it and I go up on the FM, notice that we get something back, so it's doing something. So again, like I said before, some of the presets will give you a control that works, and some of the presets will do absolutely nothing, like this one. Then at the bottom, you can change by semitones, all the way up to 24 and all the way down to 24, and then you have your cents, one up and one down. All the different engines can do the same thing we discussed with the sampler. You can go up in the volume of the part, and you can just pan it, and you can link the pan so both parts will pan the same way. And that's it. Like I said before, it's a pretty simple engine. You just need to find the preset that you like, then maybe fine-tune it and combine this with the rest of the parts. Let's keep moving forward. I will go to the wavetable and the default. If you go there, you can see the 3D view, or you can go to the 2D view. And when you click the wave shapes, you can just select a different wave shape. And like we discussed previously, you can only change the wavetable by just toggling the presets. I'm going to go back to the default. You get the volume, the pan, it works the same for all the different parts. And then you have the controls at the bottom. The position will just sweep the wavetable. And this is something that you can use with your modulators, right? Then you have an FM, and this one is a little bit different from the analog one. On the FM, you will be getting an effect for all the presets. Even if I go to the default, that is, I'm getting it. Then you have a phase distortion that also works, always works. And we can see it on the 2D view. Is that we get that phase distortion, and of course we get the FM. And then we have the wavefold. So we have a wave folder, and then very simple, we can go up and we can go down in semitones, and then you get these cents, just like the other, the other engines. And that's pretty much it. Like I said before, you need to select the preset that you like, and then just fine tune it with the controls that you get. And I'm always saying this because a lot of the guys on the web, on YouTube, or maybe, I don't know, the internet, they say that this can be used as a standalone synth. And well, technically, yeah, you can, but you don't get full control like you get with other synths. For that, I guess you have all the other synths from Arturia. And I really think that not having full control and getting different sounds for on each preset is a good idea. It just makes it less confusing and right to the point. Okay, so let's just keep moving forward. I will go to the harmonic engine, and then I will go to the default. And if you know pigments, I'm not going to teach you anything new. Just like the analog and the wavetable, the harmonic engine really depends on the preset, mostly because of the section and the morph. When we work with this engine, we will be getting or generating different harmonics and partials. And this is why you get the partials. You can go all the way up and you will be getting more partials. If I go down, you will be getting less. And notice that it kind of works like a filter. It's not really that, but it works like a filter. On the default, we get the sound, but maybe if we go to FM, we do get an FM type of effect. And then we have this section, and then we have the morph. And both controls are really important because behind the scenes, each preset will use a combination of two spectral filters. So the morph will just choose the one on the A, and if I go to the other side, we will be going all the way to the B. And if I go to a different preset and maybe even use the same configurations, if I go to all the way to the A, what is it? We get a different sound. It is because on the A and on the B, it's using behind the scenes a different profile. If I go to the B, again, completely different sound. Let me go back to the default. And since we have the morph, we can again go to the A, combination of A and B, and then go all the way to the B, and then we have the section. So the section, it morphs the filters. So if I go up, it's just going to morph the filter. And this, again, really depends on the preset. If I go to the other side, I'm going to go to section, and then sweep the frequency, or the spectrum actually. Then you have the parity, and if I play it back, this is the mix of odd and even. By default, you always get 50% odd, 50% even. If I go to the left, we will be getting just the odd harmonics. If I go to the right, we only get the even. Yeah, just like pigments. And then, just like always, you get the coarse, go down, 24, go up, 24, and then you can fine-tune by 1 up or 1 down. Coming up next, we have the granular. I will go, I guess, to the default. Let me find it. There we go, default. And when you use the granular engine, each preset will give you a different, different sample, and you cannot change it. But that's fine. We know at this point how it works. Since we are using a granular type of engine, every time that we play, we will be generating grains of a sample. So the start selects where we start generating those samples, those grains. And then we have the density, which is the frequency the grains are getting generated. If I go all the way down, there's that we get just one single grain. If I keep going up, we will be getting more grains until we get a lot. Always remember, when you use more grains, it will use more CPU power. That's how it works. You can, of course, use hertz. It's what we are using right now, but we can use divisions. Then you have the size, which is going to be the size of each grain. And for now, I'm just going to go maybe to one lonely single grain. We can see it. If I go down to the size, notice it's just very small from the playhead. If I go up, the grain will be longer. And since on the density we use hertz, on this one we use time. And we can sync it to whatever is that we have on our DAW. Now then we have the envelope, and the envelope really depends on the preset. If I play something, we can see how the grain appears and disappears. And this is what the envelope controls. The grain will fade in, and at some point it will just fade out. So the envelope, if I go all the way down, it will appear super harsh, just like we see right here, and then it will fade out. If I go to the other side, it will fade in, and it will just fade out very abruptly. If I go to 50%, we can see that this one is just a triangle and kind of a saw, an inverted saw. If I go to a different preset, this might change. Let me just find a preset. There you go, this one. Notice that the envelope is completely different. If I go down, it's more like a square. If I go up, then we are getting close to the triangle, but not quite. If I go to the other side, then we get the triangle. So yeah, like I said before, the envelope really depends on the preset. And then you have the FM. This one really works, not like the analog engine. And then you can just tune down, tune up, and then you can fine tune. right, so let's go to the simpler. And on the simpler, on this instrument, on the brass I'm using right now, you have different categories. For most of the augmented series, you will be getting different categories inside the simpler, because the simpler will play a very specific sample. That's why you get categories. So maybe I'm going to go to drone so we can get something kind of long. So since this one is a simpler, of course we play a sample. And maybe you're thinking, what's the difference between this simpler and the sampler we have at the left? The sampler, it will just take a sample that Arturia recorded so we can use it. That's why we can really play it polyphonically. If we go to the synth, we just have one sample. Now, can we play multiple keys on this one? Well, not really. If I go to the keyboard, so you can see the keyboard at the bottom, I'm just going to play a chord. And that is it. We just don't get it. We can go to the key, and this will listen to our keyboard, and it will just transpose and play the keys, but we are just really playing one single key. That's the main difference between the simpler and the sampler. Let's go back. When you have a sample, you can adjust the start and you can adjust the end. And if I play, it will start playback, and at some point it's gonna die. And I'm still holding the key. And this is because we don't have a loop. We can enable the loop and then select the portion that we want to loop. That is just looping back, and then it will go, and loop that section. When you enable the loop, you get more options. You get the loop direction. You can use back and forth, or maybe just forwards. So when we play something, it will enter the loop, and it will start looping that forwards. Also, when we work with the loop, you have a loop fade. Right now, when it enters to the loop, it's very harsh. So when we use fade, the transition of entering and exiting the loop is just way smoother. Of course, you can go right here, and with the handles, you can change the loop. And also, you can click and just drag and supersize the sample display. If you double click, it will go back to the normal size. For now, I'm going to just disable the loop. In between the loop and the key, you have the snap. So usually when I'm going to go here, let me just show you, you have a waveform, and if the snap is off, you can just take the handle and move it freely. It's not snapping to anything. Well, with the snap, what it will do, it will just snap to the zero crossing point. And we get this so we can avoid clicks and pops. This is a very common feature on all simplers or samplers. And then you have the most common params. If I play the sample, I can decide where I want to start the playback of that sample. If I want to play it in just normal, which is forwards, or maybe I want to play it in reverse. Cool. Then you have an FM that works. And then you just can tune down or go up in semitones, and then you get your fine control. That's it. And that is it. Those ones are all the different engines that you get. And like I said before, most engines work the same on all the different augmented series instruments. Okay, every time that you create something on layer A or B, the parts will go through the filter. And on the filter, you have different modes. You have the SEM, multi-mode, Sargent, comp, phaser, and formant. I'm not going to go crazy just showing the different filters, because this one, I guess it's just pretty simple. I will go to the SEM, and if I play something, I'm going to go here, and we just, use the filter. On each filter, you have more options, and it depends really on the filter type. So you have a low pass, notch, resonance really matters. Right here, we have the band pass, and then we have the high pass. So then you can see that you can, if you have maybe two different parts, you can unlink that part. This means that the part A, if I unlink it, it's not going through the filter, it's going directly out. The only one going to the filter or through the filter is the part 2 or the A2. All right, so then you can turn off the filter and both parts will go out. If I go to maybe the multi-mode, notice it's just pretty much the same with the same options. Then, of course, you get the other one, the certain, and again, you get the same modes, but it's just way more aggressive, as you can see on the slope. And then you have the width on this one, and this one is disabled, but it depends on the mode that you're using. Then you get the comb, and yeah, you get the comb type of filter with more modes or options, just to make it really wild. And one tiny thing that you need to know is that on the comb filter, you have settings that you can use. And the settings really depend on the mode that you're using. So you have a damping, you can just set the delay of the comb, and they all pass. And then I guess if we move on to the phaser, it's just a phaser type of filter. You can decide how many poles you want, and then you get it. What else? If I go to the formant, this one is super cool because you can modulate this and get something really cool out of it. And I guess that's it. I don't want to extend what the filter can do because it's just pretty obvious and simple. And we will spend quite some time talking about the rest of the instrument. Now, one more thing that I need to show you is that by default, when I go to a default patch, the cutoff is linked to something. It's linked to the color. And this is the macro. If I unlink it, nothing is just modulating the cutoff unless I map it. But if I take a look at the envelopes, it says sampler 1 envelope, 2 envelope, and then it says layer A filter envelope. So the third envelope of each part is tied to the cutoff, just like a normal synthesizer. And this is controlled by the envelope amount. If I play something and then just go up, that is that we are modulating the cutoff of the filter. Now, still, we will talk about this in a second when we discuss the envelopes. And okay, so let's talk about envelopes. You have a total of 6 envelopes, 3 per layer. But this is not pigments. All the envelopes are tied to something very specific. On each layer, the envelope 1 is tied to the part number 1, the 2 to the part number 2, and then the 3, the filter envelope, it's tied to the filter, but you can use it as a free envelope. I will go to maybe the first envelope, this one, and you get the most common controls that you could get on an ADSR type of envelope. You get the attack, you get the decay, and of course you get the sustain. And as you can see, you can change the curves of the different parts. Then you have the release, which can be really, really long. It always depends on the sample that you're using. And then if I turn this one off, and I play something, I'm going to turn off the synth, I'm going to get nothing because the sampler 2 uses the envelope 2. And right here is where, the complexity comes because you have many different parts and, different sections for those parts. So yeah, it kind of takes the time to create a preset. But again, the params are very simple, just an ADSR. The problem is that you have a lot. Now then you have the third envelope, and this one, it's going to be tied to the actual cutoff. If you use no envelope amount, you're not doing anything. So you need to do a little bit of envelope amount so you can modulate the cutoff. So if I go crazy and I go here, we can hear the modulation. If I go down, we will modulate the envelope in a negative fashion. Right here, you get almost the same controls: attack, decay, sustain, and release. And then you have some extra controls. Let me go back to a default patch, and I will go right here. It says velocity and then time, and then the multiply. And all of this is talking about the times of the attack, decay, sustain, and release. So if I play something, and I will go to full velocity for now. I play something, this will happen. Now then, if it's on 0, it means that the velocity that we are using will not affect the times that we have right here. So I'm going to play, and this is what we get. If I go up, it will make the times longer. And I'm going to make it a very slow release and a very slow decay so we can see what's going on. There you go. I'm going to play, it's going to go up like this. Velocity time is 0. As soon as I go up and I play a key, notice that it will scale it. It's going to start going faster depending on the velocity I use. So now if I play soft in terms of velocity, it will go super slow. And this is what it's doing. It's just scaling the time of the envelopes depending on the velocity. And if I play super hard, it's much faster. So soft, slow, hard, faster. Of course, 100% is just, maybe way too much. Maybe I can go to something in between, and we can see the motion. For now, I'm going to go all the way down to 0, and then you have the time multiply. So I play something, I get that. And right now it's on 0. So if I go all the way up, the times will be multiplied. So now it's just super slow. If I go all the other way down to 10, now times are super fast. So we are just scaling the values that we currently have. So my advice is that if you do something to your envelopes, and maybe you want to make it slower, you don't need to adjust the values, you just scale up or you can scale down. Then you have the release link. If I click it, what happens now is that the release is disabled, it's grayed out, and it's because the release will use the same time that we use on the decay. That's pretty much what it means. If I move the decay, the release will also move the same fashion. All right, so now on this one, on the strings, you get a different option that you don't get on all the other augmented series instruments. You get the synthetic and you get the natural. If I go to synthetic and I do maybe a long type of release, it will just, go down very smoothly. Now, if I go to natural, it will be much slower. Notice that it's just taking a long time to die. That's the main difference. Just different, it's just a different way of releasing, let's say. Then, of course, the envelope 2 will work the same. If we go to the layer B, the 1 and the 2 will work exactly the same. And if we take it to the actual layer A filter, well, this again works completely the same. The attack, decay, sustain, release, same options. The only difference is that this one will modulate the filter, and you even get the multiply, and you get the velocity scaling the time. Now you also have an option that right here that says poly or not poly, which is mono. And this is because you can use this LFO, I'm gonna use it right now, in mono, which means that if I play a key, maybe a second key, third key, all the voices will follow the same instruction. That's why it's mono. If it's poly, it means that each voice will use its own version of an envelope. Let me go back to a default patch. And as you can see, the envelopes are just tied to something, but you can go here and just drag and link the envelopes to something else. And this works just like pigments. If I want to maybe, let's say, use the envelope number 3 or the filter envelope to modulate the cutoff, I can go here and just drag and drop. And right here, I need to modify the amount, to set the amount. And I can go, of course, up or I can go down. By double-clicking whatever assignment that you have, you will be deleting that modulation. So you need to be careful with that. Now, one thing that you can do, you can hold the right-click just to adjust by small amounts. Again, if you double-click, you will be deleting the modulation or the assignment. But if you go to the actual modulator, to the source, not the target, the source, you can see all the different targets that you have on that source. So maybe I can go to a position and then go to FM. And then if I hover, I can see everything. And we can, of course, just change the different values from here directly. Remember, if I double click and make it 0 and I go out, we are pretty much deleting that modulation. One cool thing that you get on the target right here is that you can maybe go here and just turn it off, and you will be disabling the modulation, but you're not deleting by just double clicking back to 0. And this is how you assign a target to the different sections. If I go to the envelope 2 or maybe layer B envelope, it works completely the same, right? So we go here, we get it. If I go to LFOs, it works again the same. I need to click, just drag, and now just modify it from here. And if I go there, I can see the destination. On the LFO section, you have 2 more than capable LFOs, and then at the right side of the screen, you get a vibrato and a tremolo. This one's behind the scenes. Use an LFO to generate the effect of vibrato or tremolo, but you cannot use them for anything else. We will talk about this in a minute. First, I want to cover the LFOs. Just like we discussed previously, the way to assign a modulation is by going to the actual source and then just dragging and dropping to the actual target. And right now I'm using the LFO1. And right here you get the most common controls. You get the rate, so you can go fast or you can go slow. You also can use hertz, or you can sync it to your DAW. Now let me go back to maybe hertz. Now then, what you get is the amp. Right now it's just maybe a little bit too aggressive, which is something you can control from the actual target. But you can go down on the amp and it will just scale down the modulation. In terms of waveforms, you get the usual suspects. You get the sine wave, the triangle, the saw, inverted saw, then of course the square, and then you get the more random type of shapes. Why don't we get more options? Well, that's because you have the functions. With the functions, you can just create your own envelopes or your own shapes. But we will talk about this in a minute. At the top of the LFO, right here, we can adjust the phase of the LFO. So we can start from a very specific place. And this will be important when we talk about the different modes. And then you can just make it bipolar or unipolar. So what this means, if of course it's bipolar, is that it will go into positives and negatives. But if we make it uni, it will go only to positives. So if you're here, it will go only but up, and it will not go up and down. That's bipolar. Cool. Again, the LFOs are just pretty simple. Now then you have the other modes, which are the LFO key trigger, and on this one you get more options. On this one, and I'm gonna go slow so you can see it. Since it's a key trick, it means that every time that we play a key, the LFO restarts. That's it. That's the difference. Play a key and the LFO restarts. With the other one, it's free running. It doesn't care if we play a new key. It will not start again. It will not re-trigger. Also, on the key trig, you have a fade in. So maybe if I play a key, it will take a little while to kick in. And maybe I'm gonna just gonna make it faster. As I'm playing a key, I'm gonna play it now. And it will take this amount of time to go into full modulation. You also get the phase, you can adjust the phase, but you can also make it mono or poly, which is something that you don't get on the common LFO. Then the other one, it's going to be the envelope. Now this is also known as a single shot. If you play a key, the LFO will just run one time, reach the end of the cycle, and it will just never restart. So it will only run one time. Single shot. And you also get the options for fade And you also get the options for mono and poly. And that's it. So as you can see, the LFOs are just very common and very simple. And it's because to do complex things, you get the functions and the randoms. Now let's go back to the LFOs, and I guess we need to talk about the vibrato and the tremolo. If you don't know the difference between vibrato and tremolo, the vibrato, what it does, it will modulate the pitch. So it's like me going to this sampler. Let me just go up in volume and maybe on cutoff, and it's like doing something like this. I'm doing it manually, of course. So that's vibrato. We are modulating pitch. Then the tremolo, again, if you don't know what it is, it's like me going to the actual volume and doing something like that, just modulating the volume. On each, you can decide what you want to modulate. For example, I could maybe just modulate the pitch of the A, but not the B. So if I go up in depth, we are modulating the 1 and not the 2. The rate will decide how fast we go. And then you have the fade, which it works exactly the same as the other LFO. Cool. Now let me just go back to default, and it will go to the synth. I guess it's just going to be a little bit easier to hear with a normal shape. There you go. If I go up in depth, we can hear that pitch. Then you have the retrick, which means that by default, the LFO is free running. It will constantly run. It will not restart if I play a key. But if I go to retrigger, it will always restart when I play a key. And then you can use poly or you can use mono. By default, it's mono. Play multiple keys, it's mono, which is fine. And maybe I'm gonna go here. There you go. So now if I make it poly, each time I play a key, each voice will follow its own version of an LFO. Notice it's just a little bit way too modulated. If I go to mono, it's going to be a lot more constant because all voices will follow the same LFO. Right. And then the tremolo, it's the same concept, but instead of modulating the pitch, it will modulate the volume. And notice that we can see it right here. Maybe I can go down. We see the modulation. We can also go into hertz, or we can sync. And everything else is just completely the same options, the same params. All right, so let's talk about the functions, and I'm using the voices, the augmented voices. No reason at all, just using different instruments just for fun. So on the functions, you can do what you cannot do with the LFOs. You can create your own shapes. So by clicking on the display, you will be on the timeline. You can create your shape, and if you want to map it or assign it to something, I guess I will just use maybe the filter number 1. If I chop it down, we can see it. I'm gonna take the function 1, drop it, and we can see the modulation. Now you can click the points and adjust it, and you can adjust the curves between the points. And if you know pigments, I'm pretty sure that you know how this works, because this is a trimmed version of the functions that we get on pigments. Now, so if you want to delete points, you can right-click the points and kaboom, the points are gone. You can also click and hold, the right-click and hold, and you can delete or select the points that you want to delete, and once you release, the points are gone. You can use at the bottom the different templates that you get. And something great that you get right here is that you can go here, select just, a preset, but you can also create your own shapes, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then you can save your own shapes so you can reuse them later. You have your draw mode, which means that you can freely just create the shape like we are doing right now, but you can use steps, which means that you will be creating steps or drawing steps. Then you have the ramp up, which is the same idea, but ramp up. And then you have the ramp down. Again, same idea, but backwards. Cool. Then you have the rate, which means how fast you can go. And then you can, of course, sync it, or you can just go into hertz and go free. Now, the scale's just super important. If you go all the way to 1, everything is just what you draw, but then if you go down, you will be scaling down the waveform or the shape. But if you go down into negatives, you're inverting the shape, and you get the exact opposite. Cool. So right now, the modulation is unipolar. It's going one direction. Positives. We start right here, and then we go up. But we can make it bipolar. Right? So, of course, we need to draw something that can go into positives and go into negatives. And for now, I'm just going to delete all of this. If I start here, we start into negatives, we go into positives, then negatives, positives, positive, and then negatives, and so on and on and on. Cool. If I click it, it's just unipolar. Then we have different modes, just like we get on the LFOs, and this one's work exactly the same. If I go to key retrigger or a key trigger, it means that the LFO or the function or shape will restart, and I'm going to make it slower, will restart every time I play a new key. If I'm on the other one, the normal, the LFO, the default, the envelope or the function doesn't care I'm playing new keys. It will never restart. Again, if I go to key trick, you have the option of make it mono or poly. And then you have the envelope. So it can work as an envelope. Notice that when you go to envelope, you have a sustain right here. It says S. So if I play a key, the envelope will sustain at this point if I'm holding the key. And as soon as I release, it will just, continue. And of course, it will not start over because this is an envelope. It will just trigger one single time. If you want to delete the points, you can. And by double-clicking the different points, you can make or assign that point to be the sustain. So maybe I can put it here, just create different points, and it will go through the motions, and it will only sustain at this point. But maybe I just want to make this one the sustain, so I just need to double-click, and I make that point the sustain. On the randoms, you get two different options. You get the Turing type of random, and then you get the sample and hold. Turing, it's a way of random, but it's a lot more controllable. So you can create a pattern with the Turing mode. With the sample and hold, you cannot. It's just, good old-fashioned random. First, I guess I'm going to assign something to maybe the filter so we can really see what's going on right there. And I'm using a sustain type of value so we can test all of this. I'm going to go to the random, just drag and drop so we can get that random. The random, as you can see on the screen, it will generate a new step or a new random value after a certain amount of time. And this depends on the rate. If I go down on the rate, that is that the changes are just, slower. If I go up, we get more changes. And we can, of course, go into sync or we can go into hertz. So if I go super fast, the changes are going to be way too much. If I go slow, we get less changes. Right now it's just super slow, maybe way too slow. There you go. I'm going to go up so we can really see what's going on. Then you have the scale. By default, it's going to be on 1. So this is the amplitude of the instruction, just like, we get on the amp of the LFO. If I go down on the scale, we are just leveling down that instruction, and at some point we get nothing, no modulation. So if it's too harsh, you can just scale it down. Now, the Turing, like I said before, is a way we get to output a random type of modulation, but it can be controlled. And you can control it with the length property and then the flip. Just to show you how this works, I'm going to go to sync and I'm going to go there. So we can really, follow what's being generated. Scale all the way up, and I'm going to go to the flip and go all the way down. So everything starts with the length. So if I play something, it says 6. If I go down, maybe to 3, notice that we get a modulation. And if we take a listen and we take a look, it's predictable. It's a predictable modulation. So now it's not random anymore. We have a pattern because it's predictable. And if you take a look, the sequence or maybe the pattern is 3 steps. And this is why you get the length. If you want to make it more steps, well, then you go up. And now we have maybe, 14. And when we generate a random, I'm going to go maybe faster, still will be predictable, but we have more steps. We can go all the way up to 32, and it will seem that we have a fully random type of instruction, but it's not really, we have more steps. It's still predictable. What makes the Turing more random, it's going to be the flip. If you have it all the way on 0, what we are getting is just a pattern with different steps. So it's not really random. So flip, if we go up, we get more chances that a step will be more random. And now, if you keep going up, we are getting more randomness from the Turing mode. And if I go maybe to 3, something that should be predictable, what is that? Now it's just not predictable anymore. If I go down on the flip and I play it, predictable. And if I go up on the flip, not so predictable anymore. Cool. So, that's the Turing. If I go here to the left, we have the same options than before. We can use key trigger, which means that every time that we play, it will generate a new instruction. This is what we see right here. If I go slow, we can really see that every time I tap a new key, it will generate a new step. But if I go to LFO, it doesn't care. I'm just pressing new keys. And then you have the envelope. An envelope, it means that when you play, it will generate only one instruction and it will stay right there as you hold the keys. That is that it's generating every time I'm playing a key and holding. And, that's how it works. Now then, I'm going to go back to LFO, and we have the other mode, which is the sample and hold. And this is the good old-fashioned sample and hold. If you really want something random, you need to use sample and hold. So I'm going to go all the way up on the scale, maybe go faster, and we get that random. The transitions are pretty harsh. That's why you get the smooth. You can round the corners and make it more smooth. If you go all the way up, it's just maybe a little bit too much, but it works. Now then, you get the same options, key retrigger. You get the option of poly and mono, same as before. It will, again, restart every time that we press, and then envelope, it works the same as before. It will only generate a new instruction when I play a new key. I play and release a key. Cool. And that's it. As you can see, the randoms and the functions are a trimmed version of what you get on Pigments. Okay, so let's talk about the keyboard and then the macros. So keyboard is whatever you can assign that can be controlled by a keyboard. If we take a look here, it's about the mod wheel, then you can go to key tracking, then you have velocity, then aftertouch, and then you have the MPE. And how it works is that you just need to drag and drop whatever is that you want to modulate. If you want to use the mod wheel to modulate the the cutoff, then you just drag and drop, same as the other modulations. And then if you want to key track, going to take it to the cutoff, and it's the only modulation that we have. If you don't know what key track is, it's the values of your keys. Every time I play a new key, notice that it will go up on the cutoff. So it's following the keys I'm playing to modulate something. As I go up or higher, it will go up, and if I go down, it will just go down in values. And I'm gonna do something like that, and notice that the cutoff is following my keys. Then we have the velocity, and I guess this is pretty obvious. I'm gonna just go to the cutoff. So the modulation will move depending on the velocity of our MIDI clip or maybe our keys. If I play soft, we get almost no movement. If I play hard, it goes really wild. And then you have other modulation sources, which are the aftertouch and then the MPE. So if you have an MPE controller, you just go map it to something. And if you have a controller with aftertouch, you map it to something. In my occasion, I have aftertouch, so I'm using it right now. Now, all the different instructions that you have on the keyboard, it's something that you can control with the envelopes right here. You see the velocity, aftertouch, mod wheel, keyboard, and then MPE. So this means that, again, if you, let's say that I want to use my aftertouch to modulate the cutoff, right here it will tell you what you're doing with the aftertouch. And I can make it exponential, linear, or logarithmic, or maybe I can add a point. You can add up to 2 points. You can add more, just to create a very specific envelope for your modulation. And you can do the same for all the other ones, right? So 2 points, and the same with the MPE. You just click and create a point. You can, of course, adjust the curve, and you can delete the point by right-clicking. Very similar to what you get on the functions. And that's it. But then at the left side, you have more options. These ones are not really related to the modulation sources that you get on the keyboard. On the wheel settings, you can decide how much you want to go up or down when you use your pitch wheel. Maybe I want to go crazy up. Well, then you set it up right here, and you can go up to 36 semitones, which is a lot. And then the other option right here that you get is the mod wheel. What this one will do. If you go here, you can use the morph or control the morph with the mod wheel. And if you don't know, the morph is what we have right here. If we use the mod wheel, we modulate the morph. That's pretty much what it means. But you can just maybe control vibrato, or you can go to custom. So how can you assign something to custom? Well, you have it right here. It says mod wheel, and then you just go to, I don't know, whatever source. I'm gonna delete maybe the tremolo, just maybe turn it off. And I want to use my mod wheel to modulate the cutoff. If I go at the bottom, notice that I can modulate the cutoff with my mod wheel. Cool. Now then you have the play settings. Of course, you have some glide. Just like any synthesizer, all of these are just standard functions. And the glide will be as always, or you can just make it legato, which means that you need to play a key and hold it in order to get that glide. And then the hold got nothing to do with the glide. Let me go back to no glide time. I'm gonna just select the hold. If I play a key, it will just hold it for me. If I click again, it will just stop holding. And this is an option that you also get on the ARP here. We will talk about the ARP in just a minute. Then the velocity settings, we kind of discussed this already. If I play very soft, the volume will be low. If I play hard, my velocity is affecting the amp, which is, the volume. If I go down, it doesn't care if I'm playing soft like now, or I'm playing really hard. And if you want to know how hard you're playing your keys, you can go to the velocity tab, and you can really see right here how soft or hard. I'm doing hard right now, or soft. Now, if I go all the way up on the velocity and I play it, the curve, it's linear. If I change it to something that maybe doesn't make sense, it's not listening to the curve. So I will just make it active, and now it's using the curve I've created right here. Cool. So that's, what the curve means. And then you have the voice settings. If you keep going down at the bottom, you will get the amount of polyphony. And this really depends on the augmented instrument that you're using. In this case, you can go up to 32, which is really crazy. And the voice settings, it decides how it works with the voices. You can reassign the voices, or you can rotate the voices. Then right next to the voices, you have this icon. And I want you to take a look at right here, the wheel settings. If I click this, it says morph. So with the pitch, with the mod wheel, we are controlling the morph. But if I click it out or just turn it off, we are going back to custom. Why do you get this? Well, maybe because we are on the play view and we want to change it very quickly. We can just click this and we can perform different actions with the mod wheel by just turning it on and then off. Okay, let's talk about the macros, and I'm using the brass version right now. If I go to the macros, you get the main screen, which is the same thing that you get on here with a couple more options. Now, if you're wondering, because this was my first question, can I change the name of color, time, the labels? No, you cannot. Even though if you kind of disconnect or remove, let's say, the delay and the reverb from both macros, you cannot change them. If there's a way, let me know, because I couldn't find a way to do it. So here it's fine. You get this view, but the most useful view when you go to a macro is by going to the settings. So when you go to the settings, you get all the different macros and the assignment for those macros. You can perform almost the same tasks that we get when we assign a macro. You can't just turn it off. You can modify the modulation amount, and you can just delete the modulation. A cool thing that you get here, which is something that you don't get on the other ones, is that you can change the curve. I'm going to use the color, and I'm just removing all the assignments, and you can do clear all if you want. I'm going to assign this to the cutoff, and now the macro will control how much cutoff I'm doing. And the curve, and I'm going to go fully up, and the curve will decide how the macro will just modify that amount. So if I'm going to go all the way down, and I go all the way down in the color. So it means that if I go up, I want to do something like this, right? So, okay. So I'm going to start, and at some point, notice that nothing happens, but the curve, it's all the way down. So if I reach the peak, then and only then, I'm going to start getting my full modulation. If I do the opposite and I go the other way, I'm going to get it as soon as I move the knob or the macro. And of course, this is something that you need to configure to your taste. And on most let's say hardware synthesizers or maybe analog emulations, there is a curve on each of the controls, the things that you don't see it. But right here, it's cool that you can decide or control the curve of your macro. Now, all the other macros are completely the same. You go there, you change the curve, the amount. If you want to clear, kaboom, you clear, and on and on and on. Now, the one that's a little bit different is the morph. So this works as a macro. It is a macro, but it works differently because the morph is the one in charge of taking or blending the A with the B. So you have different modes. For now, I'm going to go back to the default preset. On morph, you have the mode of crossover, which means that if I go all the way down and I play something, and I'm going to, enable all the different parts, I go up, and we will start to cross over from A to B. And if we go all the other way, we only get the B. 50% is a blend of A and B, and 0, it's just A. which, it kind of makes sense. But then you have the other modes. You have this one, which is, it's going to blend the B into the A. So the A will always be present. This mode is called the additive mode. So if I play it, I'm always going to get the A. And the only thing that we do when we go up on the morph, we bring more volume of the B. Notice that, I guess, maybe I'm going to just make this one a little bit less louder. And I'm going to go up on this one. So the A is always present. We never remove it. The only thing is that we blend more of the B. On the other one, again, we get A or we just get B. Here you can decide what you do when you move the morph. The default settings is what you get as a crossover, right? So if you go to the left, you get the A. If you go to the right, you get the B, and 50-50 when you are at center. And this is the same thing on the edit. When we are on the left, on the minimum of the morph, we get 100% of the A1 and the A2, which is the layer A. If I go all the way to max, we get full B1, B2, so layer B. But right here, let's say that I want to make the B1 fully up when I'm on 0. And then I'm going to go here and just make it 100. So now, if I'm all the way down, I'm listening to the A1 and the B1. And if I go the other way, we are listening the the B2, and then the A2. So it's just completely different. And also, just like we did with the other macros, you have the curve. It's a pretty cool, option or param that we get right here. Now, this one, it's also a macro. So you can, of course, control the layer A or B, but also you can just map it to something. That is that by default, it is M. So maybe I just, can go, I don't know, to the cutoff and control it with that, or maybe, even the resonance and just control the resonance. Right, the effects section is just pretty simple. You have 2 effects per layer. So you have the layer A and, 1 and 2, and then you have the 1 and 2 on the layer B. In terms of effects, you can do the same for both layers. If I go at the top, you have all the different effects. And again, this looks pretty much like Pigments or the new versions of whatever Arturia is doing. So you get a lot of effects. And then you have the same thing for the B. Since you have 2 layers, at some point you need to control the volume of the effects A or B. And in this case, both are going out. So if I go to the effects and I go down in the volume, I just get the B, and there's no volume. So both engines are going, both layers are going through the effects. So you need to provide some volume. And then you just combine, and they will go out to the main effects. So the main effects is like the bus effects of this plugin. Layer A and B will go out to the main, and then it goes out to the DAW or whatever is that you're using. In the case of the main effects, you only have 2 effects or 2 types of effects. You have a delay type of effect, which is something that you get right here. Is you get the digital, you get the pitch, which is the pitch shifting type of the delay, and then you have the tape type of delay. And here you get nothing new. It's the same thing that you get, almost the same thing you get on Pigments. And then on the other side, the delay will go into the actual reverb. And you get a digital or convolution. And that's it. You don't get all the effects that you get right here. Now, it's kind of weird because, usually on Arturia plugins, on each effects slot, you get all the effects that they give you. But right here, it doesn't work that way. You have the full power of the effects on the layers, and only then you go out to the delay and verb. Still, if you're using this on a DAW, if you want to turn off the effects and not use the main effects, that's fine, right? So you go out from the instrument, and then you go to your DAW and you do your processing with all the other million plugins you own. One thing I would love to have right here is to change the order on the main effects, right? So maybe put the delay after the verb and so on and on. On the layers, you can, by selecting different effects, because you can select maybe a delay on the first and then a delay on the second and have two different delays. So you can kind of swap the effects, but on the main you can't. And okay, so the ARP, it's really, really cool. It can work as a standalone ARP, just a normal ARP, but you get a lot more options on your screen. If I play a chord, and I'm gonna go to the keyboard so you can see what I'm doing. If I play a chord, it's just gonna, go and do the ARP. And right here below, you have the most common options. You have the type of the ARP, and if I, again, play the ARP, you can do up, you can do down, you can do up and down, inclusive, exclusive, or inclusive. And then, you have the random. And to finish the as played, which is the ARP is going to play in the order you play the keys. Cool. So again, most upper ARPs or Arturia ARPs have these options. Now, of course, then you can, and I will go to up, you can change the rate, you can go up, or you can go down and make it slower. And you can, of course, go to BPM if you want and just use the BPM right here and not the one that you have in your session. For now, I'm just gonna go to sync and use 16s. Then you can do swing, and you will get that swing. Fine. Then you have the octave, which means that it will just repeat the ARP on the octave I'm playing, and then one up. And you can go up to 2 up, 3 up, and then 4 up. All right. Then you have the cycles, and this one is a little bit uncommon for ARPs. If I just keep it on infinite, it means that it will play as long as I'm playing something, or maybe I'm holding. We can hold, and that's it, it's just holding. So the cycles, it means that it will repeat one cycle of whatever is that you have right here at the top in terms of steps, and then it will stop. So in this case, it's just one cycle. It will go one cycle, and when it's done, it's just stops playing. Notice I'm still holding the keys. If I do 2 cycles, it will go 1, and then it will go 2, and then it will die, and I'm still holding the keys. So that's why you get the cycles. You can go up to 8 cycles. For now, we're just gonna keep it on default. Then you have the chord function, which means that you can just play one single key and get a chord. For this, you need to turn it on, and then you need to select the chord that you want to use. You can just, click the different keys and create a custom chord. In this case, I'm just gonna use a minor 7th. Once the chord is on, if I play one key, that is, I'm playing just one single key. It will ARP that minor chord in whatever pitch I'm playing. Again, I'm just playing one single key. Now, what happens if I play a chord? It will use all the pitches of my chord. So it's kind of weird, but it gives a really cool effect. So these options are really common for an ARP. Then you have the other options, which are not that common. So first, you have the 16 steps. And of course, you can just make it less than 16 steps. So maybe I can just do 4. All right, so that's one thing that you can do. You cannot do more than 16. I'm just maybe holding one key. I'm going to hold a chord. Right here, since it will go to all the steps, you can just click and disable some of the steps. So what you're doing, you're adding a rest to that step. And I'm still, always holding a chord. So yeah, again, you're just adding rests. Then you have all the other options, which are the options you have, you get at the left. If we start from the top, you have the chord function. And this one is super cool. So I'm gonna play one key. And I'm just gonna go here and just enable the chord. And on this one, and on this one. So I'm still holding one single key and nothing happens. Now I'm gonna play a chord. If I play a chord, notice that it's playing my chord every time that it finds the chord. And this is also something that we can use when we select the chord function. When I turn it on, if I play one single note, and I'm playing one single note, it's just playing that chord, and then it's just, arpeggiating that chord. Cool feature, very cool feature. Now then you have the chance, and velocity, and then gate. I'm gonna just play a chord and just hold it, and it's just, gonna play that chord. So the chance is the chance of that step of playing. By default, it's always 100%. But if I, go down, this step has 11% chance of playing back. And you can just draw something like that, and most of the steps will have less chance. That's why we get less. When you go less than 50%, it's just 50 chance that the step will play. And you get, I want to say random, but yeah, kind of a random type of ARP. Because you don't know when the step will play or not. If you go all the way at the top, you can just click and drag, and everything goes back to normal. Then if I go to the velocity, well, this is going to be velocity. If we have something modulating velocity, this will affect it. Right now, I'm not really using it. So if I go maybe to the keyboard, I will go to the cutoff, go down, and then I will go to velocity, and then go all the way up in velocity. So now I'm going to go back to the ARP and play it. And the velocity that we have right here will affect the actual, sound. There we go. All right, so, you're just messing with velocity. And then you have the gate. For now, I guess I'm going to go back to a default patch and turn on the ARP. And if I go to the gate, this will make the gate or the step short. If I go down, all the steps are going to be super short. But maybe some of them can be, really long. So yeah, velocity and gate is something that you get on all ARPs these days. On the velocity and the gate, you can click to go back to defaults, but you also have the the generate icons. So here you can just go up, and when you release, it should be creating a random type of instruction. But the thing is that, you need to click it. You need to click the generate. And for that, it's going to take whatever value or percentage that you have right here. If you go all the way up, it's going to be super aggressive. If you go down, it's just going to, do nothing. But if I go up, and again, I click generate, and it will give me a random type of, random type of steps or values. If I click it again, it will generate again and again and again. Now, the generate really depends on the values or the percentage that you have on the velocity and the gate. Then at the bottom, you have auto, and then it says off. So this means that you can turn it on and select a division. So let's say that I'm going to select 1 bar. So this means that after 1 bar of playing the ARP or the sequence, it will regenerate whatever we have on the screen. So I'm going to play it now. It generates a new one. It ends, and it will generate a new one, and on and on and on. In our case, we are using 1/16, so 16 is 1 bar. If I maybe go to 2 bars, why not? It's going to be one version, the same version for 2 bars, and then, generate a new one. Another cool thing that you can do is you can link the lanes. By default, it's what you get, but if you unlink them, you can offset the lanes just to have different values. And you will be creating interesting poly rhythms, because they're going, at a different rate. All right, so that's it. That's the ARP, right? So that's it. If you got this far, congratulations. This was a lot. And as you can see, once you learn the different parts, it's not so challenging. At first glance, the instrument looks very challenging, but it's just really not. The only thing is just it takes time, because you need to find the right samples and the right presets. That's all. Hopefully you liked all of this, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon.